to fight my body. Going in, knocked away.
The Boston Celtics with a big win, unlike me who hit the wrong button first. So you got a nice quick look of our smiling faces before I hit the intro. I'm here with Jake Eisenberg. Jake, how you doing?
Mate, doing good. Want to know? NBA's back. Life's good.
Let's do it. And we have a special guest, one of our favorites, the man with the best headlines in basketball, Dan Greenberg, a.k.a. Greenie from Barstool Sports, who is reporting live from, I think, a jail cell, if his camera's anything to go by. But what's up, Greenie? How you doing?
Like Jesse said, or Jake said, same thing. 1-0, feeling great. Hard to be better than undefeated.
Yeah, never in doubt, baby. So let's jump into some big takeaways on that game. I think we were cruising. Jake and I live streamed it last night. Like that third quarter, Knicks go on a run. We come right back. It's about 10 points going to the fourth quarter, and then the pants pooping proceeded to happen. Classic Celtics pants pooping. Yep. So how are you feeling overall after that game? Because they did, come back and they found it somewhere and won.
Mm-hmm. I feel like dirty about it. You know what I mean? Like I'm happy that they won, but they're going to need to play a whole lot better, right? Like obviously you have the caveats of first game, everyone's getting acclimated. That's fine. But some of the things that crept up were not from the new guys, right? It was from the same old habits that we have been seeing dating back to the bubble, right? So they can't blame Marcus Smart for it. You can't blame Grant Williams for it. You can't blame, so that's the part that, you're concerned about, but you're also not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill because they did show the resiliency. They did come back and finish the deal, but you feel like you're happy, but you're also kind of, not unhappy, but you're frustrated that already game one, we're still seeing a lot of the same problem areas creep up.
Man, old habits die hard. The ISO ball in that third quarter into that fourth quarter, and it was everybody. Derek was doing it. Jayson, Jalen was doing it. True. Everybody was doing it. Yeah. For some reason, we were like, well, let's just turn the difficulty up on this game because they're just putting Porzingis in every pick and roll, pick and pop is working too well. So let's go away from it for a while until the last two are down 6 with 2 minutes to go. And now we'll start going back to it. And lo and behold, it started working again. I think I needed this result because I was maybe flying a little too high. Up 10 with whatever it was, 9 minutes to go. We're on the live stream. I know. No, and I was like, Spoonie, this is usually exactly when I call the bookie in Australia and I put $10 on
FanDuel. Call FanDuel.
Sorry. Yeah, call FanDuel. I have to go through a very an VPN international dial-up system to get to FanDuel from here, but I do get there, and this is usually when I bet on the Celtics up 10 with somewhere between 6 and 9 minutes to go, and I said I'm not going to do it. This is a new year, and until they prove otherwise, and literally from that moment they just pissed that 10-point lead away in a matter of moments. It felt like
I think it was 47 seconds or something. It was under a minute or something crazy.
It was insane.
Yeah, that's something we're really good at, is just getting rid of all those good feelings as quickly as possible. So I personally needed that to just bring me back down and be like, this might take some time to get us to the level that I think that we can get to.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I think what's interesting about that point is I think we all want to be like, look at how Porzingis closed the game. They're over their struggles. Well, part of what led into those struggles was the exact same type of collapse like we saw to open the fourth quarter. And if you look at who was the driving factor to those, you had Jalen's crazy CTE level basketball.
Oh, man.
You had Tatum dribbling into a double team and losing the ball with about 3 minutes left or what have you. So it's they're your best players. And that's why I think it's important to understand that whatever pieces you change around them, until they are able to execute not flawlessly, but have, prevent those mental lapses, the ancillary pieces aren't really going to matter, right? It didn't really matter who was around them because Tatum and the bench unit came in, to start that fourth quarter. Boom, immediate 13-2 run. Well, it's like, what are we doing here? I thought things are going to be different and grow. And the only difference, I think, is now we saw when people doubled Tatum in those final, 2 minutes. Now it's Porzingis shooting. Like, that's a noticeable difference. But we saw no difference in terms of what got them in that situation in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, look, let's. I think there's plenty of negatives to take away from that game, and I think when we talk a little bit in more detail about Jaylen, we'll get to a few of those. But I think the bright side, if you're looking at this game, is that Celtics shot 30.8% from three. The Knicks shot 44%, and it was like 50% before the final 2.5 minutes, and then they missed, I think, 4 in a row to end the game. 2 of them being those heaves when the game was already over. Lost the turnover battle 13-9. And the Knicks had, I think it was 72 offensive rebounds. I mean, it might be a little high, but it felt like that's
in the first half.
So, yeah, Jake. I mean, am I too flowery here? I mean, is there positives to take away from this?
No,
one?
I think it's hard to win in the NBA. The Knicks are a good team. They were the 5th seed last year. They're, I think, going to push for home court again this year. So anytime you just get a win against a plus 500 team, especially when you lose the 3-point battle by that much. I went back and had a look. There's been 14 NBA games played so far. Teams that won the 3-point shooting battle are 12-2. The 2 teams that won were the Orlando Magic and the Boston Celtics. And
I mean, Joe Mazzulla is not an idiot, right? That's why he always to make fun of him for it. But it's like in 2023, you have to at least match your opposition in both volume and in makes. That's just the league.
Yeah, so from that perspective, I think for them to get out of there with a win, and look how many times they lose this game where they do collapse and it's just over. Then there's once they lost those leads, it was always a matter of can they hold on just enough to where they win by 1 or 2. But once they ever lost those leads, that was it. For them to come back and actually win this game, that's a good sign. And yeah, I think my main takeaway is that in the clutch, my main thing was always like you have to involve KP because that's going to be the easiest way to get good shots. He's not always going to hit these 27-footers to save the day, but he certainly hit 2 big ones in the last 5 minutes yesterday. But I do think that even watching the Bucks in preseason, and it's just an adjustment having a guy like that where it just needs to be the go-to pretty much every action down, especially in the clutch. Doesn't matter who has the ball. The first action should be a Tatum pick and roll, pick and pop with KP or Derek or Drew or Jaylen. All of them can run. All of them successfully ran actions, including Peyton Pritchard with Porzingis in that pick and roll, pick and pop area. And that's really how the defense was being collapsed. And for some reason, they just zero pass ISO from the wing, from the top of the key. They cannot help themselves. And as soon as they went back to it, everything just gets a little bit easier.
Now, let me ask you both. Did it, I don't know if concern is the right word, but did you find it surprising that they go cold from 3, the lead starts to dwindle, they're making this comeback? We heard so much about diversified offense down the stretch. Now you have a post presence in Porzingis. You can just be less predictable. He didn't have one post up last night. Like they didn't have yes, I feel like they had the 2-man game, the pick and pop, with Porzingis, which was, different from holding the ball for 20 seconds and then ISOing, but there was still no real diversification in their shot profile. It was still, generating threes, which is fine. But I did find it interesting that down the stretch of a game, we finally have tools to just see what a diversified offense looked like. And even I think Mazzulla said it after the game, how he needs to start, incorporating different actions for White and all those guys. So were you guys surprised that it really was the same old offensive approach, just now with a different tool?
I think one thing I noticed, and maybe I'm wrong here, it did feel like it wasn't as glacially slow as they play often in crunch time. Like it ground to a halt at times, but it wasn't like get the ball over half court with 16 seconds left and all of a sudden you're rushing to get even your first action off. So I will say that looked better. Also, the Knicks are weird defense. They don't switch, right? And that's KP isn't Al Jefferson. He's not going to post up Mitchell Robinson or something like that. You need to get a switch where he's got Quentin Grimes on him. then he can post that guy up. And the Knicks just don't really give that up, which is why like the pick and pops were wide open because they're just in such a deep drop. So I wonder if it's partially who you're playing and just also like it's all brand new. Drew's been here for like 2.5 weeks. They've not played an actual competitive game with KP. And Jake said it, old habits die hard, man. Like it's going to take some, I think there's going to be growing pains with it.
Yeah.
I also haven't had time to go back and look at this specific thing. I spent most of the morning going back and looking at all of the Jalen's defensive possessions. But I do think they went to Tatum in the post a fair bit in the fourth quarter. I think
Tatum, yes. But I was thinking more like initiating offense through Porzingis out of the post was something that I was just thinking, okay, this is going to be a solve for their late game offense. But maybe Spoonie's right. Maybe it's just more, and we should set our expectations of it's more just a matter of getting into sets quicker and being more decisive and not just lackadaisical. Because they did become extremely easy to guard because they just took so long. So maybe it's not that they're going to change the sets they run or their approach. They're just going to get into it quicker.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing I noticed and I've wanted the most is like I think the go-to thing in the last 5 minutes should just be Tatum in the post because right now he's either getting to the free throw line, getting a pretty clean look up, or there was one where I think Hartenstein got a kick ball where KP was wide open again on the wing. So that to me, unless they are switching, like Spoonie said, like against the Heat, if they are switching everything or they're going to zone, that's where maybe KP becomes like that go-to in the post. But yeah, when they are playing drop, I do think, you don't want KP posting up Porzingis, but Tatum in the post.
That was interesting. I was like, we have this brand new weapon, and while it's nice that he fits into how they were playing before, like seamlessly, maybe they didn't want to show everything. Maybe they're not confident in it. So I am excited to see them against Miami because that's the team, right? This is why they made the trade. This is what we have to see. Everyone will be healthy on Miami's side, so I think that'll give us a better look.
No, I don't know. Heat legend Josh Richardson already out tomorrow, I believe.
Oh, is he? Oh,
yeah.
That's bad. We want the Heat fully healthy. They play better when they're missing people, I feel like.
I know.
KP's line, kind of a weird game for him where he was sort of invisible in the middle 2 quarters, 15 in the first, 30 and 8, 4 blocks, 8 of 15. I think he was 8 and 9 from the line. And just we're talking about using him in the crunch time offense, scam fouls. Like that one foul he got on Hartenstein in the corner, like it was a foul, but he drew that thing out of nothing, man, and had absolutely zero time on the shot clock. So I don't know about you guys, but and he's burying his free throws. Like I think that like could it have gone better for his first showing as a Celtic?
I don't think so. I mean, it's always one of those things where a guy that skilled, you think, okay, he's gonna hit his open looks and things like that. But for me, I was more surprised, maybe just because how many possessions of his defense on the Wizards are you seeing? But I love how he just does not get baited by pump fakes because he's just so freaking tall. He's like, you can pump fake all you want. I don't need to jump to impact your shot. And you could tell, like, part of what I was nervous that they were going to be missing with Rob gone is just when he was on the floor, guards just wanted nothing to do with the rim. Even if he wasn't blocking a shot, they knew that he was somewhere in the vicinity. With that gone, I was like, no one's going to be afraid of Luke Cornett. No one's going to be afraid of Al Horford. But you could see that even like they weren't even wanting to do, putbacks with him just around the rim. Like that is an impact that I think people maybe didn't realize fully of just him being on the floor is going to detract people from shooting a little mid-range. He had, I think it was either, I don't know if it was RJ Barrett or maybe it was Julius Randle, but they took like an elbow jumper and he still blocked it. It's like Wembanyama type stuff. So that was surprising, but the fact that he just was not being baited by pump fakes is something that has me excited because that's going to limit him from getting into foul trouble. He's not going to have those Rob where he's just taking every baited pump fake. And if they're going to be going up against Jimmy Butler, I need you to stay home on every fake possible.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. We don't have to worry about Rob biting on all of the pump fakes anymore. Yeah. He was immense defensively, I think. Yeah. When you watch some of these teams that have those anchors. He really did look like that for every position that he was out there, deterring people coming into the lane. I played that clip that also had sound over it. I can get this. I think this one has no sound. So yeah, I think Porzingis defensively was immense, but offensively, everybody seemed to be able to get it going with Porzingis, which I think is the whole. But this is what you think you're talking about.
Yeah, see, he doesn't jump.
Yeah, he does. He doesn't need to. Like he's that big, and like everybody getting in on the action, whether it's Pritchard, poor Drew Holiday, and this play I loved as well. Like Randall thinks that Porzingis is nowhere near being able to block this, and he gets there. Transition blocks. Yeah. He was literally everywhere, and then he makes life easy for Jaylen Brown, which I think on a day like yesterday, you need to kind of simplify things for Jaylen Brown, and then of course the
unbelievable
the dagger, right? So everything that was advertised about Porzingis, he did yesterday, and so that's I think
you can best describe it as it took one game for us to see Brad Stevens' vision. Right? This was it. It was the pick and pop option. The 2-man game is lethal right from the jump, right? He gives you rim protection. He's good in space. He has to, the defense has to respect him, which opens up driving lanes for everybody else. Every single thing that Brad talked about when when he had that interview, right after the trade of how everything is based on, can you make the Jays' life easier? We saw it on both ends in this game. And I honestly, I can't remember a debut where on both ends of the floor, you saw every single part of Brad's vision, right? There's usually, all right, he was great on offense, but he was a little slow to pick things up defensively. No, it was everything from the opening tip was you want to say he's the perfect player for this system. It's just if he gets hurt, I'm going to have an existential crisis. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did play 37 minutes last night, so Joe definitely pushed limits there. Yeah, look, it wasn't quite the same level as Evan Fournier's debut,
exactly.
who I don't think hit a shot for the first few games as a Celtic.
Yep.
Derek White's debut, I remember, against the Nuggets was pretty excellent, where he made his shots, but then proceeded to miss his shots for the next. Pretty much till the following season, really. But yeah, so this was the perfect debut. You can't ask any more from Porzingis, and to do it in the Knicks in MSG where they're chanting "fuck Porzingis," and for him to get asked about it as well, and just be like, "Yeah, I appreciate that they're talking about me, and I hope they have a good life."
And you know what? And what's one of the not reservations, but I think one of the questions I think is fair is now that he's out of insignificant basketball in Washington, what is he going to be like in these big pressure-filled moments? And we're not going to be able to answer that in terms of what will happen in a playoff series. But I think there is something to be said about how the game was sort of in the balance on the road in a hostile environment. They're screaming, fuck Porzingis, whatever. He buried them. And that's the type of killer mindset where you're like, okay, maybe this dude, everyone had always had that soft moniker, mentally weak, whatever. Maybe now he's entering his NBA prime. He's in a great basketball situation. He's healthy. He had that dog in him, right? That was noticeable. He was grabbing rebounds and, flinging around and, hitting Hartenstein in the face. Those were things that I just was curious about, just because when you're playing for the Wizards and the game hasn't mattered for 7 months, how do you know what's going to happen on the road against a good team in a high pressure moment? And he was nails. He didn't turn the ball over. He got to the line. He hit his threes. He was effective defensively. Based on what we have to evaluate him, you got to say, okay, if they're in a tight spot, I think I'll be able to rely on him to come through.
Yeah.
Look, Porzingis has had such a weird career. Knicks fans should be the first ones to tell you when he first came in, obviously he was, electric as a rookie. He was, depoy level player. Really, like he did have that dog in him originally when he was in New York, and things just kind of went sideways. Not necessarily so much for what he was doing on the court with the Knicks, and then the fit with the Mavs was just weird, and the Wizards didn't matter. But like these Euro guys, Jokic talks about it all the time, where they're like, "Did you think this environment was intense?" He's like, "Brother, I've played in Serbia," and you do see these videos from these guys playing in Europe where there's like flares and the ground's like shaking,
beer cans hitting the court.
Yeah, like Porzingis is Latvia. I was gonna say Lithuania, Latvia, the Latvian hero, right? He's been playing big games in Latvia for years, and the passion and the emotion and the pressure that goes into those games is real. So you are right to see it in the NBA for the Celtics on night one in a hostile environment, revenge game. I mean,
and I think it says something that, Tatum trusts him in that moment, right? Like that tells you something right away also. So if Tatum's going to trust him and then he comes through in those moments, I think that just helps subconsciously them not have to say, okay, I need to rely on ISO basketball where nobody else can touch the ball. Now you can say, okay, we have this 7'5" unicorn that isn't going to shy away from the moment. And I think part of what they had to get away from was at the end of these games, nobody felt like they wanted to shoot. So Marcus Smart was like, all right, I guess I'm going to be the one that has the guts to take it. If they can have another option who's a better shooter, have the stones and not be afraid of the moment, I think that is going to alleviate some of the late game crunch time issues also, because, you can just have that confidence and trust where, you don't just have to, I don't want it. Here, Smart, you just shoot it and take it. I think that is, if that's now Porzingis, like we saw in that clip with 1:30 left, I think you're feeling a little bit better about yourself.
Yeah, and I think offensively seeing it work is really, it's great. But I was more concerned defensively, especially like Brunson's the exact type of dude that can murder drop coverage. Like he gets into 15 feet and he just buries those pull-ups. But Porzingis is so enormous that he can't even get that shot off, allows the guard lock and trailing to come back, bother Brunson. Sometimes he doesn't get a shot off. So everything looked great with KP. We've gone too far though. Jayson Tatum, he had 34, 10, and 4. He was 8 of 9 at the rim going against Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson. And for as great as KP was, I think Tatum was the best player on the court.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think it's just we've become desensitized to it, right? To me, this was just this is just what Tatum does. He's 34 and 11 on good splits. But I think it was noticeably different how aggressive he was, right? There was I only remember maybe it was one or two. He had a little post fadeaway where you're like, I wish you maybe did an up and under there and, whatever. But he gets the benefit of the doubt given how well he shot the ball. So I thought his aggressiveness was, and how he attacked the rim was noticeable. And we can't ignore the pull-up three. If this pull-up three is back and he's not shooting 29% like he did last year, if he's going to flirt with the high 30s like he did 2 years ago, what do you do?
See ya.
What do you do?
Yeah, look, I think Celtics fans have spent so much time arguing, or maybe I'll speak for myself, pushing for the idea that Tatum is right in this tier, just below Jokic, Giannis, Steph for me. He's right at the top of that list. And he has felt like he hasn't gotten fully that kind of respect. But then all of a sudden, he just does it every single night. And so it's we don't even need to talk about it because, he is the MVP candidate. Zach Lowe picking him to win MVP, Devin Booker being right there, Luka Doncic being right there. Those are the three guys kind of bandied about as being that next group of MVP candidates year in, year out. And all three of them went off for 34, 12, and 7 or 8 or whatever it was. Tatum only taking 8 3-point attempts is right I think what you're talking about there, Greenie, where everyone's been talking about, is it the wrist? Did he gain too much muscle? Which I have just been so strongly against the idea of this thing being anything.
That's your 13th reason right there.
Yeah. Dude. It's absurd to me. Every NBA player gets bigger and stronger. All of the catch and shoot numbers and the free throw numbers have been identical, have been really good, despite him gaining pretty much the same amount of muscle every single year. And so to us, he's been taking 2 to 3 shots that are just bad every game. And if he takes those out, he shot 37.5% from 3 yesterday, obviously one game. But if he goes 3 for 8 every single game, that's perfect.
But it's important. Like, it's not only 3 for 8 on just catch and shoots. It's pull up off the dribble. It's the sidestep 3. Like
the one in the corner.
As soon as he does that, it's like the right-handed between the legs dribble into his jumper from the left side wing. When that goes in, that's when you know, like, all right, this is like Tatum 50 ball territory. As soon as I see him make that shot, that's like his heat check barometer. He usually shoots it pretty early, and like that's like his, all right, if this is going, like, watch out. But I loved how when he had that smaller defender on him, it was right to the rim. It was everything that we're hearing Sam Cassell drill into his brain. This might be the year that we finally get consistent bully ball with a respectable pull-up 3.
Yes, I think that's the biggest difference, is that on the nights where, because the 3's not going to go in every night, it's just understanding that he has other weapons, and like weaponizing that bully ball, that post game is that is going to completely cut all of those stinkers in half easily. Because once he gets going inside, I feel like that is when, like, the first half of the Game 7 against Philly, he took 3 3-pointers. And it's because he was going inside out. I find that sometimes the 3's not going, or he works his way from the post out to the 3-point line. He just is a much better rhythm. And so to diversify that game, I think that's what I like to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just the finishing over and around length, man, is just
so
standing.
I was going to ask you, I need you, again, gut check me, but it felt like on his drives last night, it's not like he was driving and then avoiding contact at the rim, right? Like, there have been years where he's averaged 10, 12 drives a game, but once he got around length and around contact, he tried to, spin it or just not finish strong. Last night, I felt like it was driving with a purpose from liftoff through the completion of the shot. And I think that's a noticeable difference. And that is a benefit of the muscle that he's putting on.
Yeah, and I felt like he did a lot better job. You remember IT used to just like throw himself at the shot blocker and like bounce off and get space. Like, Tatum did that. Like, it doesn't look as ridiculous because he's not 5'7", but he did that where he like really got into Mitchell Robinson and then just kind of laid it off the glass. It sort of like paralyzed him a little bit. So I think like that's just an incredibly encouraging game and a good test. Because Mitchell Robinson's an elite shot blocker. He's a great rim protector. So the fact he's finishing over him, I think is just, I'll say it 1,000 times, very encouraging, out of words. But I want to talk about Jrue Holiday. But gentlemen, I'm teasing us. Before we do, a word from our sponsor.
Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Got a bet for us, Jakey?
Boston Celtics, home opener against the Miami Heat, favored by 7.5. It's higher than I thought it was going to be when I just checked just now. But why not? $5, you get $200 back anyway. So
love it. All right, Jrue Holiday. I feel like he took LeBron's advice to Kevin Love, literally fit in, don't fit out. And so what was just Greenie, open-ended. What were your first impressions of Jrue?
He fit, right? I think I'm going to get killed for saying it, but like, it was about as Marcus Smart of a performance as I think we've ever seen, right?
Boo.
From the shooting, which was, not great.
That's good.
Who gives a shit from that? 4 of 10, 1 for 5. What I really am impressed with, and I always remember this used to happen whenever he was on the Bucks, is he has this knack for, even if he gets beat, I feel like he's always finding a way to poke the ball out on every drive. Like, for me, it's like he knows when and how low you're going to bring the ball and always finds a way to get a hand on it. So I thought was impactful. His defense on Randall was,
awesome.
He usually can't guard positions up like that, right? His strength is usually on ball against these smaller, quicker defenders. So to see him handle Randall the way he did, I think it was 1 of 10, in their personal matchup was great. I think, more so with him, we have to be a little bit more lenient in terms of him getting acclimated, because Porzingis' adjustment is you're open, shoot the ball, right? With Drew, it's going to be a lot more initiating offense, being that floor general. Down the stretch, he didn't even really touch the ball in terms of orchestrating. And I think that's all fine. I just, I wasn't blown away with it. It was more of the type of debut that I expect. Like this is the impact that I think you're going to see from Drew. There are going to be nights where he's going to go off offensively and be efficient. But more often than not, all I think he has to do is defend, hit his open threes, and just move the ball. If he does that, then he's going to be a perfect fit.
Yeah, it is crazy that what we need from Drew now is to be another version of Derek White, is to be that glue guy, connective piece, attack, mismatches. That was the thing last night that was classic new guy, where I think that if he was on the Bucks, he had at least 2 matchups where he had a smaller guy or a guy his size in the post, where we all know that that's one of Drew Holiday's strengths, is that down in the post, he can put these guys under the basket and get these nice little turnarounds. I think twice specifically, he had the matchup, he took one bump and then tried to pass out of it when the help came, and he turned it over twice, where just get the shot up. That's always going to be the
like you said.
Yeah,
I think with
that's
time, they'll be encouraged to, be aggressive. It's sort of like how they had to basically bully Derek White into being an aggressive offensive player. So I think that's the same sort of fit. It's like, you don't want to mess up what's already going, but it'll take time for him to understand that for the Celtics to be at their best, he needs to be just as aggressive. And that doesn't mean he has to, take early shot clock threes or force things offensively. It just means that when he has a mismatch, don't feel like you can't take advantage of it. And then you get into the overpassing issues. Like Derek White, I think it was in the first quarter, had that wide open layup and he passed. Yes. It's like, you got to just remember, it's okay for you to score like that. You're not going to be benched because you're being an effective offensive player.
Yes, take the open layup, please, Derek. Yeah, that was.
Speaking of Derek, Jake, got to throw to you first. He's your mistress, or you are the mistress. It goes back and forth, but which of your these plays was your favorite Derek White play? Where he absolutely obliterated, I think, Julius Randle or Mitchell Robinson's shot, or when he sprinted back on defense and poked it loose from Jalen Brunson, who had a breakaway layup?
Or was it when he put Isaiah Hartenstein in the Kevin McHale torture chamber, got him with the up and under,
and he got fouled.
And he got fouled. Dude, 12, 6, 2, 2, 1. It was literally the perfect Derek White game. I guess he did get into foul trouble early. He got those 3 fouls. He didn't commit another foul for the rest of the game. That kind of threw off the rotation, but he was perfect. There was a reason I did the Pilates before the Knicks game in order to prepare the gluteus maximuses for the mistress. He was beautiful. The skull, the glorious bald head. That's a good looking man out there. It's fresh.
To me, I think it has to be the full court sprint. I mean, that's a tone setter where you could have given up on the play, but when somebody makes a play like that, that's the infectious. Like you get jazzed up over a help side block like that Randall play, but it's the winning play, the hustle play like that, the tap from behind is that. I mean, that makes you feel things that it's like 6 to midnight before you even know it.
I mean, you're right, Jake. And his defense, him and Drew down the last 3 minutes when we really need to turn the screws and win the game. Their defense was incredible. Those two were absolutely flying around, and just watching them funnel people to Porzingis and just you hit the brick wall. Sorry, gentlemen. It was a thing of beauty. Those two are going to destroy teams all year. Okay. What is there more to say about Derek other than he was perfect as per usual?
Well, the only thing left to say is they better cut the check. That's what's left.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Extend that, man. Yeah. Okay. Jaylen Brown. 4 of 11, 2 turnovers, 5 fouls, I believe 6 boards and 5 assists, though. Mm-hmm. Are you worried about Jaylen Brown's performance, Jake?
Oh, That's a loaded question. I thought you were going to ask Greenie first, and I was like, okay,
Greenie, go ahead.
No, it's all right. Jalen was kind of like the only one that I have concerns about going into the season, just because I think that the way that this team is set up, like his strengths, like are not. He's not built for like this 0.5 read and react offense, kind of like the rest of this team is. Like I kind of trust Tatum, Derek, Drew, and even Porzingis to make quick decisions. I do think that Jalen's role is going to change or should change quite a bit compared to last year. So I actually do think that Jalen might have the hardest adjustment out of anyone. I kind of believe that Drew can adjust pretty quickly to a new role night to night pretty easily. And I do think that that's where we saw some of the issues with Jalen last night, where Jalen did not play as bad as some people would have you believe. Like, absolutely no question. I thought he played pretty good defense for the most part. I went back and watched most of it. The problem is like this over-helping thing that I think he has a habit of right now.
He has a big overhelp problem.
And so I've got a few of them here. This is obviously the worst one in the corner, the 4-point play. And also this is why he's not used to whatever the system is, because he had a couple like miscommunications on switches, ones with Brostons that he missed and that one there. And he just found himself in no man's land a few times. I do think that it can be cleaned up. Like you watch this on film and it's like, Jalen, you've got to stop doing this, because this is just shades of the game 4 against Philly. Now, I just want to say, off the back of those videos, he was not the only culprit of over-helping. Plenty of guys did this. Drew Holiday had great defense on Brunson here, and Al Horford sucked way too far down and led to a wide open 3. There was another one here where Jalen actually contained Brunson really well and was containing Brunson quite well, and then Drew sucked down too much, which led to an overhelp. And then Tatum gets caught in no man's land here on a wide open RJ Barrett 3. So like, it wasn't just Jalen. I think that Marcus Smart's gone, as you said, Greenie. So people are looking for the guy. It's going to be Jalen this year, partly because of the contract.
I would agree with you, right? Like,
yeah.
Big picture, am I nervous about his performance? No. I mean, he has a large enough sample where it's like pump the brakes. Having said that, that doesn't excuse his extremely loud mistakes, right? Like we're still seeing people like to say he doesn't have a left hand, and I disagree. He doesn't have a left hand problem. He has a decision-making problem, which is arguably worse, right? Like that's not a good thing. I'm just saying, like, it's concerning when you're in a late, close fourth quarter game, he's still making these bad decisions, right? Like the turnover where he tried to find Holiday. I don't know if you have a clip of that one.
I did, yeah.
He tried to pass it through the entire defense. It's like, that's a good intention pass, but it's a terrible decision and terrible execution in the moment, right? His overhelping in these final late fourth quarter games, like happened in Philly, like what happened last night, those are not like, it's not nothing. You can't just totally ignore it. But I do think that people overall are saying, they're blowing it way out of proportion in terms of, he was a disaster. I mean, he led the team in assists. And if Pritchard and Hauser made their open looks, he probably has 7 or 8 assists, right? What are we talking now if he finishes the game with 8 assists and, 1 or 2 turnovers? The issue is none of the early stuff matters if late he still can't be trusted to execute at a high level. That's the part where you're like, okay, this has to be, I don't know what the solve is, if it's film session, if it's him just, not playing brain dead. But, that's the part where I look at it like, if they're in a playoff series and these are the mistakes that are happening from their top 2 guys, they're going to have the same frustrating results no matter who else is around them, because you need him on the floor. But I don't think it's like, oh my God, panic time, like he's not going to be able to fit in this role, blah, blah, blah. It's more, I just need him to be making better decisions at the end of these games. It's as simple as that.
He looked a little timid offensively to me too. Like I felt like a few times he had an open corner 3 that he just like didn't rise up and fire. And I think like he probably, Jake, you said it, he has the biggest adjustment with Porzingis' arrival, right? He goes from like the clear, nobody else is even close to getting the second most shots on the team to kind of being like the third option at times, especially since that Tatum KP makes so much sense in 2-man actions together, that Jalen's just going to have a little bit less of the ball. So I think he's got to find his spots a little bit better. And I think it goes back to like, it's just going to take reps. The passing, I think, is really encouraging, though, because he passed a few guys open. He had that one little dump off pass to Derek White for an easy layup. That is a pass I cannot remember him really ever making.
So that one, and then there was the drive in traffic and then kick out to Pritchard, who missed the three. Both of those plays are turnovers last year. Because he's probably not even looking to make that pass. So it's like you have to look at his game. You have to take a step back and say, yes, he's making these really terrible mistakes at the worst time. But the problem areas that everyone wanted him to work on and show improvement on, we saw last night. Like, I'm not worried about his 4 of 11, whatever. I mean, we know he can shoot and score the ball. And I'm honestly not even that worried about the pecking order in terms of second or third option, because I do think we'll have nights like last night where it's KP's night. Friday, for all we know, could be the only person that I feel like has field goal attempts and usage set in stone is Jayson Tatum. Everybody else, it's going to fluctuate. And if it's a night where KP can't miss, I want him to be the second guy. And I think it says something that Jalen didn't force his shots. He instead tried to find guys on his drives. He only took 11 shots last night. That easily could have been 14, 15 if he had forced things offensively.
And they missed him open in the corner at least twice, like wide open. Like Tatum, like really easy play. I'm forgetting who the other one was as well.
I think it was Derek, because on the stream we were like, I can't believe Derek missed him on that.
And I think they should be looking for Jalen, because I've been saying that if he is able to fully embrace, fully find himself in this role that that they've set up for him, he could have like his most efficient season as a Celtic. Like the way that Tatum and KP can help manipulate defenses, Jalen should be catching the ball with the defense already compromised over and over and over again. That's where Jalen should be finding the ball. And like last night in particular, like he hits 2 of those wide open corner threes. All of a sudden he has like 16, 6 and 5, right? And like maybe one more assist. Like we're so close from that being like just being a normal good Jalen game and then winning by double digits. Was it a good Jaylen Brown game overall? No. But like I'm not worried about. I'm long term. I'm confident that they will find and he will find himself in this offense and we'll be okay.
Now I wonder. I wouldn't claim to ever know what he's thinking, but I do wonder. Everyone always talks about this contract. He has to be this certain level. I almost wonder if him getting this Supermax almost makes him more comfortable taking that step back in a game like last night, right? Like he's already got his money. So as long as you're winning and he's on the court when it matters, like I think the first instinct is to think he's the star player. He's always been a number 2. He's going to have a problem with it. Well, maybe because he already got paid, he's now at the point where, I think Tatum said it after the game, the pain of losing, like they know what has to happen for them to get over the hump. Everyone is going to have to sacrifice. I think it's entirely possible that him getting this Supermax deal allows him to be comfortable in that second, third, fourth role on night, whatever the game dictates, as opposed to if he was still trying to get that Supermax, that's then more of an issue. But, we won't have to deal with that.
Yeah, 300 million makes going from 18 shots to 14 shots a game feel a lot better than. Okay, Jalen, I think I'm with you guys. Like, I'm not worried long term. He'll figure it out. Kind of a weird game, and yeah, Jake, you said it. He makes 1 or 2 more shots. All of a sudden, it's like, well, it's a pretty all around dominant game from Jalen. So,
and if he just didn't have, if he just like
just
didn't
turnovers,
disaster 30-second stretch, right? Like,
it is crazy.
If he had finished with 5 assists and no turnovers and they still won, I think everyone feels a lot better. But the fact that he has, the turnovers and then the inbounds one and then he fouls the 3-point shooter, it's like I said, he just has these loud mistakes that come literally at the worst possible time.
Yeah. Totally agree. Speaking of the worst possible, the bench. So I think Al, we're all comfortable with. We know Al's going to be great. He always does it. Like, there's no concern there. The triumvirate of PP, Hauser, Cornette combined for 4 points. all 4 were Pritchard. They were 4 very important points. He hit that one pull up in the lane that was like kind of stopped a Knicks run, and he hit those 2 big free throws to basically win the game, which was awesome. Otherwise, I actually thought PP was totally fine. He just missed his open shots. And I sort of feel the same way with Hauser. Cornette concerned me. Yeah, but the Cornette Al minutes, I was not a big fan of. But where are you guys at with the bench?
You go, Greenie.
I mean, again, first game, blah, blah, all those disclaimers. Fine. We all understand that. My fear is it really kept giving me flashbacks of the 21-22 season when their bench needed a shot creator, some sort of jolt of consistent offense, and that's why they traded for Malcolm Brogdon, right? You now have a bench where your shooters, if they're not shooting, like if they can't even make an open 3, that's basically what their entire bench offense is going to be, especially if you're not going to play your high energy Stevens, Brissett's, guys that can buy you like a putback point, offensive rebound, what have you. I just felt like watching Pritchard play, even though he was, mostly fine, he just wasn't impactful offensively, right? We didn't see him really manipulate the pick and roll like we saw in the preseason. That's the concerning part, because those were the things that forced Brad's hand in trading for an offensive-minded shot creator in Brogdon. So my fear is I don't think they're going to go 0 for 7 for 3 every night. Like,
no.
Shooting regression is going to be what it's going to be. My fear is that they don't have the shot creation on their bench right now. And we saw in their playoff run when they got to the finals how important that need was. So even though their top 6, top 7 is great, you have a lot of basketball to get to before you can only play 7, 8 guys in a game consistently. So I'm nervous. Like, I'm thinking at the trade deadline, what's the move? Is it a big to, get us out of the Cornette experience? Or is it a consistent, like, they're going to have so many needs, you would think at that time. It's going to be fascinating to see how they fill it, because nothing we saw last night told us that they're going to be getting 20, 30 points consistently from their second unit.
Yeah. The Cornette minutes when you're not starting double bigs, I don't understand why that is necessary. That was like the biggest issue for me. I'm completely confident in Pritchard and Hauser knocking down open threes. Both of them have, like, Hauser in particular has a 7-year track record going back to college of being a 40+%, like, on serious volume. My favorite, his sophomore year, being 49% on like 6 attempts. Pritchard is the same, 38% on like 7-year, 8-year. He was 100% from the free throw line in his second year in the NBA, which is why on the stream I was like, get Pritchard in the game for this last play. He's who I want. If they are going to sub someone, I do think that Joe can manipulate the bench so that, like, whoever's out there, whether it's Tatum, Derek, Drew, I'd put Jalen fourth on this list. All 3 of those guys, Derek, Drew, and Jayson, can just be like the lead ball handler for bench units to me, where you're running pick and roll, pick and pop with Porzingis or Horford, and you're just simplifying those units. Like, Joe went to a lineup of Hauser, Pritchard, Cornette, Jalen, and Horford.
There's no reason. There's just no need.
That can't be. That can't be. That just can't be. So I think that you gotta have one of the 3 ball handlers out there that you really trust at all times.
What's crazy is, like, even when we saw the Tatum and bench lineup to start the fourth quarter, you saw the same offensive stagnant. Yeah. It wasn't, you can't just say, all right, we got Tatum on the floor, we're going to be good.
Can't we?
I know, but like, it just kept reminding me of the 2022 season, where it was so glaring that they needed that offensive juice coming off the bench, which almost makes me think, like, do you go back to a double big starting lineup so you can have maybe White coming off the bench? I don't know if that's the answer. I'm weary that we're not going to have the same problems we saw during the finals run.
I wonder, Pritchard to me looked very tentative, and watching him get that mid-range pull-up in the lane was huge, obviously, because they needed it, but I thought good for his confidence. He needs to, we need to find out if his ability to get buckets in that 6-man role is even possible. Because obviously he doesn't have the same athleticism and size as someone like Malcolm Brogdon. He's not going to be, the level of scorer as Malcolm Brogdon is night in, night out in the NBA, probably. But he has to be assertive. He has to come in and trust himself to take these pull-up through. And obviously he missed a couple last night. Maybe we feel a little bit different. Like he goes 1 for 4. And if he just makes one more of those shots, you're like, okay, he probably has that. But I think he's got to let him. We got to see. It's wait and see for me.
But it was a drastic difference in his aggressiveness compared to his. And I know the talent and the energy is whatever different in the regular season. But just from an approach standpoint, it just felt like it was his early years where they would pass him the ball, he would make like one dribble, wouldn't get by someone, and immediately pass it back. Like there wasn't that assertiveness to bend the defense and manipulate it, make them rotate. He was so good at that during the preseason. I was really surprised to see him fall back into that hesitant, style.
Yeah, well, right after he hit that mid-range jumper, he ran a pick and pop with KP, and he got KP a wide-open mid-range look, and KP just missed it, and then I think Pritchard came right out after that. So I wonder if he was kind of finding it right there, and maybe Joe gives him a little shorter leash, but I don't know if you have to go double bigs. I think Joe's just got to sort out the rotation a little bit better. And Jake, you got to have White or Drew out there with that.
Yeah,
if you're going 3 bench guys.
White's foul trouble kind of messed that up, right? But I think in a normal rotation setting, you'll see, at least one of the other primary ball handlers out there.
Also, I'm the Lamar Stevens guy. I know Jack Simone in the chat, he's a Lamar Stevens guy. Go read his profile, his article on Lamar Stevens.
Yes.
But whether it's Svi, I don't know how many words you wrote about Svi, Brissett, Lamar Stevens, and Banton in the offseason. We certainly spent a shitload of time talking about him. They saw 0 minutes yesterday. I would have gone to Stevens personally, but if Stevens, Brissett, Svi, instead of Cornette, there's no reason to run a double big lineup with Cornette out there. And
I was just surprised, especially during their cold streaks where they couldn't buy a bucket. That's why you have these aggressive, high energy. Think of the impact Josh Hart made when he comes in the game, crashing the glass from the 3-point line. That's why you have Brissett. That's why you have Stevens. So for them to get DMP CDs was very surprising. Given I think we all expected at least Brissett, the money they gave him in the offseason to at least have some sort of role, especially when nobody else on the bench is even really doing anything.
Did you guys watch the Suns Warriors game at all? Okogie, he took one 3-pointer. Okogie, 1 3-pointer he took, and he had 4 offensive rebounds. He is Lamar Stevens. When I watched Lamar Stevens for the Cavs, they're the exact same type of player. They can't really shoot threes. They'll maybe take one. It may or may not go in, but they're going to go get 4 offensive rebounds, and it's going to be really annoying for the other team. Cornette, Joe, our New Zealand correspondent, dubbed him Cornette negative or Cornette positive, but Cornette negative yesterday was definitely out and about.
Yeah, and it's not
fascinating. He's the smallest 7-footer I've ever seen in my life.
It's unreal.
I was just gonna say, you're getting battered on the glass with him out there anyway. So try Lamar Stevens. Why not? So, real quick before we jump in to that meeting they had a couple days ago, Mazzulla had a quote, and I think Eric Weiss in the chat's touching on this, and it goes back to the ball movement and just kind of figuring things out. Bobby Manning had it. Mazzulla wants to see the C's play with a more natural flow on offense rather than hesitating, try to nail the game plan perfectly. But he also thinks they can implement more actions for White, Holiday, and Brown to involve them. And yeah, I think that's pretty spot on from Joe. It's great to hear. We'll see if he implements it. I mean, we saw it in the first 30 games last year, and then it kind of went away. So what do you guys want? Who of those 3, who would you kind of try to get involved right off the rip against Miami?
I don't know. I mean, they're all up. I mean, I want to say maybe Svi, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm interested in his on-ball creation. I think, he has that good size, especially if Miami's going to go zone. I'm interested to see him, drive and kick. But if we're going between a backup big stretch 4 kind of guy, probably Stevens. I'm just terrified. Brissett really scared me with his inability to get buckets during the preseason.
To miss every that's his thing. He misses playoffs. Yeah.
Like I knew he wasn't going to be a good 3-point shooter. Like I came to terms with that. But he's making these beautiful moves to drive to the rim, and then he has a 10-cent finish.
What he does.
Like, that terrifies me. That has like Aaron Nesmith vibes of like he's just going out of control and can't finish at the rim. But he's like, everything is great up until it comes time to make the shot. So I'm more confident, I think, with Stevens finishing at the rim. His 3-point shooting is just as much of a question. I like how like thick and strong he is. So if we're going in terms of like a backup 4, I'd probably give Stevens a run. If it's all the bench guys, I just want to see what Svi can bring because I'm intrigued by his skill set.
Me too. And especially when the offense bogs down a little bit, that's definitely a guy that can come off those screens and then get downhill. That was also one thing from Hauser that we saw in the preseason that we didn't see. I think he took at least one 3-pointer because you want him just firing away. But at the same time, I think he took at least one. It was probably 2 where he was probably a little quick on the trigger where it wasn't really on. And he in the preseason, he had a couple of just like pump fakes, drive closeouts, and made really simple passes to players on the wing and kept the offense moving. Again, this can all kind of be directed back to first game, MSG, big game, tight game, and people not really following the game plan. Like I saw people freaking out about Joe's, that exact comment that you read, Spoonie. It's like, what do you mean you're just going to let them do the same shit they've always done? It's like, there's going to be a delicate balance between like letting these guys figure out this read and react offense, because I think the highest level that they can get to is going to be understanding pass, screen, like cut. It's just go, go, go versus like Joe's seen them run 2 ISO possessions in a row. And the next time down the court, he like he's Nick Nurse on the court screaming at whoever has the ball to run something. Run whatever it may be, run the KP pick and roll, as opposed to going 2 more possessions of ISO before he fixes something. There's going to be a balance throughout the season.
I honestly didn't think Joe was that bad last night. It's like a lot of the mistakes that I thought his timeout usage was great.
Thank God we had 2 at the end because
I know. That's a good point. But also, like, even on that run in the fourth quarter, it's like, oh, my God, he waited too long. It's like that run was literally 46 seconds.
Dude, trust me.
Right.
As someone who almost bet on it, it was quick.
Yeah. And even there was the play on the I think it was I don't know if it was Pritchard. There was the jump ball where he was even running on the floor trying to call a timeout. So I think in that aspect, he was better. Obviously the rotations are what they are due to foul trouble, but it wasn't like, it seemed like they were decisive on their end of game closing lineups, all that stuff, which I think is an improvement. So we'll see. I mean, you can only prove us right? You can only show us that you are actually learning and adapting, or you're going to have the same issues that crept up last year. But through one game in a moment where they had to execute down the stretch and they needed Joe to, not make some of the mistakes we saw during the playoff run, I think is encouraging.
Yeah, definitely. So real quick, I saw this reported today, but apparently it happened a week ago. Derek White was quoted saying there was a team meeting between the 6 starters, ostensibly to figure out who would come off the bench. And Derek said he voted for JT, which would be the best 6th man of all time. But what do you guys make of this, Jake?
I think we're going a little over the top with how much sacrifice it is coming off the bench. For these guys But look, I also appreciate everybody taking it seriously and making sure that everybody's like on the same page and making sure that there's not like one person who feels a different way. Like maybe it's good to much prefer them to go over the top than to get like 2 months down the line and someone to be pissed off with their role because often like an issue can pop up just that could have been avoided if you communicate about it and you talk it out. I do love Jayson saying that he was willing to come off the bench once.
Yeah, I think we can be honest. The discussion was, okay, Derek, okay, Al, which one of you is going to come off the bench? It wasn't like they weren't
not Drew.
other to be the sixth man, right? It was more, we respect you, Al. We probably, it was more of a let's go about this and come to a unified sort of plan, as opposed to, if we can show a unified front, that limits the potential chirping of drama or not going to accept this role, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, listen, Al Horford has started, I think he's only come off the bench like 13 games as his entire career. So like, it's a big deal for him to take that bullet for the team. And I think Tatum even talked about that, how much that means and how much he respects him. But I do think it was a little bit pandering to be like, yeah, we all got together, we talked it out. Like, no, you guys basically said, all right, Derek or Al, which one's it going to be? And then they came to the conclusion.
Yeah. But I like that they care. That's good, but it's ridiculous.
And I like that Derek was joking about it too.
Yeah, it's good.
You know what I mean? Because if he just brought it up deadpan, people would be freaking out. So,
but you know what? It wouldn't shock me if he said, if Derek's like, all right, I'll come off the bench, but my price just went up. Right? I'll come off the bench, but for, you got to kick in an extra, $5 million, or maybe if it was going to be, a player option, maybe now it's guaranteed, or a team option, now it's a player option, whatever. That I think
you saw what Fred VanVleet just got, gentlemen. I'm just saying,
exactly. Yeah, JT and JB, you guys got your $300 million contracts. You guys get to start, at least start paying for my Ubers or something.
Right. All right. MSG, big game. Knicks are a great team. Out of the frying pan into the heat. Miami on Friday. You guys like that, huh? I just thought of that too. Yeah,
you
bars.
Like you do this, for a living.
So Miami on Friday. I think Miami is probably the team I least like watching us play against. Them and the Knicks actually are probably the two.
Very close.
So Greenie, what do you most want to see against Miami?
I want to see if they can not have collective CTE whenever they play the Miami Heat.
Fair.
It's like they forget how to play basketball, right? We've seen different iterations. We've seen different coaches. It's all the same thing. So now that you have this, you made this Porzingis trade because of how Miami switches, because of how they defend you. I want to see, how does it look? It doesn't have to be perfect, but I just don't want to see the same old decision mistakes from the two best players, driving into traffic with no plan, like all the things we know and that have gotten them in trouble in the past. I think it's sort of like a mental hurdle game, kind of like when they played the Warriors after the finals, right? Like this is just one of 82, but it means more. And I think anyone that suggests that it doesn't is lying, because this team beat you 3 times on your home floor to rob you from getting back to the finals. If that doesn't piss you off and make you just want to absolutely pummel them and play smart, fundamental basketball, like, what are we doing? Because the talent level is, it's not close, right? We all know that. But the game isn't played on paper. And the Heat, as well as anybody in the league, negate that talent disparity, especially when it comes to playing the Celtics. So for me, I just want to see them not get punked by Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Just show me you can fight back and execute. And because it's going to be a close game in the fourth quarter, no matter what the previous 3 look like. All the Heat do is play clutch games. They just had a clutch time win last night against the Pistons. They won by a point. It's going to come the same way you knew every game against the Knicks is going to be a battle and close at the end. I want to see if they have the guts to actually, make a difference and play good Celtics basketball.
Yeah,
the
Heat blew. They were up 19 with like 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and ended up like devil magicking their way out of a Pistons loss last night. Typical. I will say, the Celtics played the Heat in the second game of the season last year as well. And they kind of just like wire to wire won that one, because it felt like they came in with a similar attitude to what you're talking about, because they were like, that series should not have gone 7. If it didn't go 7, we wouldn't have been like out on our legs for that Warriors series. They should come in with the same level of focus. The problem is with me, I don't think like the Heat in the regular season even matters. I think that the Celtics I think the Celtics win this game because they're actually are going to come in with that level of focus at home. I think that they win. wire to wire. Maybe it's not a blowout, but it's like they comfortably win the game. But I'm just going to be like, this doesn't matter because the devil magic doesn't start till the playoffs. That's kind of
right. Like, I don't think if they win this game, I think you'd be an idiot to say, okay, this now means X if they were to face the playoffs. For me, this is more just about having some freaking pride and not losing to the Heat 4 straight times on your home floor. Like, give me a break.
I want to see.
Who's
Oh, go ahead.
Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Like, there's going to be, because I called like the RJ Barrett thing. I mean, anyone could have called that yesterday, right? He was going to go like and have 20 points.
Oh, it's Hayward Highsmith. He's making 6
right.
threes.
Yeah,
I've been on that too. Yeah, 100%.
He's making 6 threes, or I'll have some sort of annoying Kyle Lowry bullshit. Like, that's all. You can take that to the bank. But
okay,
I just want to see when that happens. Will we see the same type of resolve like we saw last night, or are they going to shit their pants like they did in the Eastern Conference Finals?
You know what I want to see? Kristaps Porzingis banging like 8 mid-range jumpers against the zone, like right on the nail.
Just put him at the free throw line,
right at the nail.
He's 7'9". You can't block his shot.
Yeah. Good luck, Bam. Sorry, buddy. So I hope the Heat go zone. Yeah, go ahead.
Highsmith's out tomorrow too. Okay, Highsmith and Josh Richardson are out tomorrow.
All right, well, that just means the rookie out of UCLA is going to have
Swider or something.
Swider, dude. Shit. Yeah. God damn it.
All right, gentlemen. So Greenie, Jake's on for a win. I think we win this one. Greenie, we going dub tomorrow night?
I just think home opener, the crowd should be juiced. Friday night at the Garden. I mean, given who the opponent is, I just think as long as they don't just show up and assume they're going to win just because it's Friday night at the Garden and everyone's hammered, I think they should be able to win, especially because I expect Jalen to bounce back. I expect Drew to feel, more comfortable. There may be some regression from Porzingis and whatnot just because he was so outrageous. But if the Celtics play to their potential, they should have no problem. The issue is no team makes them underperform like the Miami Heat did.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I know Aussie Phil's asking in the chat here about a potential playback watch party. I might be going live. I'm not sure if the other guys can make it, but I might fire up the playback room for the Heat game because I'll be watching it anyway. So Aussie Phil, at least you and me will be in there, and Greenie, obviously, you're also welcome too. But
I'm a mess. You don't want to be around me during those hours.
We are too. I will be at the in-laws.
Okay,
so
nice.
Yeah. Way better than watching the game on Playback. All right, gentlemen, do we have anything else? If not, I'm going to wrap this thing up. Greenie, where can folks find you?
On X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it, @StillGreenie, BarstoolSports.com every day. Basketball, NBA, Celtics, of course, and appreciate everyone that reads, clicks, interacts. Even if I get triggered and argue with you over Twitter, I always appreciate it.
Jake, thank you as always, man. Love your work. We are out.